Okay, so this one is about the nature of a SRPO, or a self-regulating perpetual organisation. You can have self-regulating perpetual systems, and you can have self-regulating perpetual organisations. But this one is about an organisation only. I'll do one about systems another day. So a self-perpetual regulating system would be, a source of perpetual energy that's self-sustaining and self-reliant, clean, and will continue on for perpetually. And so a self-regulating perpetual organisation is simply an alternative to a business, a company, or organisation that operates in the same way. So the main gist of it is that if you're a founder of a SRPO, then if you pass away, something happens to you, you get hit by a bus, then the organisation continues to evolve and thrive. And what's very interesting about this kind of organisation is that it allows for the death or the obsolescence of any of the component parts, and can recreate something new, like a body. It allows cells to die, and then it recreates new cells, stem cells that have the potential to become any other kind of cell. And so you can actually look at your body as a self-regulating perpetual system. And the nature of a SRPO is that it has three component parts that are all individually sovereign and free, but entirely interdependent. And so whilst neither of the three components are in servitude to the other components, the expression of their nature just enables the others to thrive. In the same way that a bee has no idea the impact that it has on the planet, a honeybee, it has no idea that it's how it's enabling so much of the planet to thrive. It's just following its nature. It's the same thing. The honeybee is free, yet there are complex interdependencies that are intertwined with it. It's the same thing. And so a self-regulating perpetual organisation is the same. It has three component parts: a mind, a body, and a spirit. A spirit meaning something non-material like plasma, or something that all substance is made from, but it is formless in its latent state. It's like, if you follow quantum physics, it's like a field of potential energy that has the potential to become any form of matter, but it exists in a latent state. It's just pure potential. And so that's what we would call spirit. It's of the ether. It doesn't have atomic size or material size. So then you have a mind, and then you have a body. And all three of those components are independent, they're sovereign, they're free. Yet if they follow their own nature, then all three become symbiotic and thrive together as one, as a hybrid of three things working together as one. And so one of the fundamental principles of a self-regulating perpetual system is that there's a source of energy so that provides the initial spark, and that energy is given freely. It's what we call obligation-free. An obligation-free original source of kinetic energy that provides the initial spark for all of the components within that system. And it's given freely. it is obligation free. It does not need to receive anything in return. And so we call it's unconditional. And so as a human being with our body, when we receive inspiration, that's the kinetic energy that we receive that compels us to act. We can feel that it's forward-moving energy, and it's the impetus to move forward in a specific way. We call it inspiration. The reality of that is that it is energy that is freely given as a gift. It's obligation-free and provides the impetus to act. And you'll notice the characteristic or the nature of when you are inspired, it's effortless. Someone like me who is can't stand spreadsheets. If I'm inspired, with a business idea, then I'll spend all day in a spreadsheet and absolutely love every second of it. But it's because I'm compelled towards it. I've been given the energy to act, rather than sitting here going, "Oh God, I've got a spreadsheet to do." Oh, that requires effort. Whereas inspiration is like a wave of energy, and you ride it. And the nature of inspiration is that once you begin working with it and moving forward with it, it ramps up exponentially. And it grows and it keeps going. And if you're anything like me, I'll get and it's kind of annoying. If I'm honest, it's a gift and a curse, but I'll be going to bed and all of a sudden I'll get like a really big, like an inspiration for a new brand. And I just come downstairs and I could stay up all night creating a new brand. But it started off as a thought. And so here's how the energy works. You receive that initial inspiration, could be a thought, and the part of you that is the observer, that provides, what you choose to give your attention, that thing is appreciating, it's receiving energy. And so if I receive a thought, if I observe that thought and I give it my energy, then it's being amplified. So whatever you're choosing to give your presence to, whatever you're focusing your attention on, it is amplifying. Now, as I'm observing this thought, it becomes more. It becomes a vision. And I'm observing the vision, and at some point, I'll be thinking, what does this mean? And at some point, I'll be able to interpret the meaning of that vision. And that's when the inspiration to act comes. So it's like, it's when you're inspired to act, it's because you've interpreted the meaning of a thought and you've given it your presence. And so when the meaning comes, that is a collaboration of all three of the parts of you working together as one. And inspiration provides the impetus to then act. And then, you follow that inspiration until it runs out. And this is how you initiate that mechanism of it being perpetual, and receiving the kinetic energy to move forward. Now, if you're someone who isn't inspired or feels though they're not inspired very much, it's more than likely because you are resistant to your own thoughts. The best way to think of a thought is it's the seed of every creation. It's the seed of absolutely every creation, and it's the seed point of inspiration. So if you're resistant to your thoughts, if you're scared of them, if you think they're too dark, and you find yourself constantly meditating to escape them, not saying meditation's bad, because it can be really good if you need to find a state of peace and you're being peppered by your thoughts. But if you are in a state where you are willing to receive all of your thoughts and gift your presence to them so that they become amplified, become a vision, and then interpret the meaning, then you will be continually inspired. The difficulty is that, with life being the way that it is, it requires your presence. It requires your free will choice to be with the thought until you can interpret the meaning. And it requires courage to back your interpretation of what it means rather than trying to seek validation for it. Most of us, we doubt our own interpretation of the meaning of what we can see in our vision. And therefore, often we won't act upon the inspiration. We'll seek to try and get someone else to validate it first or try and find evidence of our interpretation. But this is what self-trust is. It means that you've interpreted something, a thought, a vision, and self-trust means that you back your own interpretation of that vision, and this is what your truth is. Your personal truth is the interpretation of what you can see, of what you are experiencing. That is what your personal truth is. This means that XYZ. That is your truth. That is your power. So if you want to be inspired in your life, rather than meditate next time, if you do spend time meditating, intend to observe the thought as well as interpret the meaning, and then back that meaning, whatever it may be. And you'll more than likely be inspired to act or move forward in a specific way once you have interpreted that meaning. Now, this also works in terms of your own self-awareness. So it's not always inspiration to create something. It can be just a revelation that expands your awareness. And, a common way that the mind works with us, brings us a thought, is to help us understand deeper truths within ourselves, relating to who and what we are and what our potential is. So sometimes a thought is just bringing you the awareness that you feel powerless, or that you feel trapped, or that you feel insignificant. And this is why so many people try and escape their thoughts, is because they're afraid that their thoughts are dark. But the truth is that your mind is just trying to help you discover your potential. And lots of people say to me, you can't dwell on negative thoughts and you can't dwell on negativity and all these kinds of things. But I think what people don't understand is that your potential, meaning the brightest light, the highest potential of what you want, of your desires, is underneath the darkness. It's not above it. And this is a common misconception. People think that if they want to experience, exaltation or joy or bliss, that you have to move away from the darkness. But the brightest light is on the other side of the shadow. It's beneath it. Or if you were looking at it in a linear fashion, actually look at it in a horizontal fashion. So let's say the darkness is the bottom of a barrel. Now, and we talk about hitting rock bottom, but the reality is that when you go through the bottom, through the darkest shadows, you come out the top into the light. So it's not about moving up the scale, it's about sinking beneath the shadow and into the light, and you sink right into the highest potential. And so, this is a practice that, if you do want to realize the depths of what you're capable of and experience, the most expansive emotions that are available to you, then this is a practice that is essential, really. And that is the ability to bring closer your darkness, bring closer your darkest shadows, your negative thoughts, and embrace them and give them your love. Now, lots of people get told this, lots of spiritual teachers talk about love yourself, you have to give yourself love, you have to accept yourself as you are. But in truth, what this actually means is, in order to love yourself, it means that you are, a part of you is a mind. If it's giving you a thought and it's a negative thought, you receive that thought and you gift it your presence. That's what love is. Unconditional presence is love. When you're just allowing someone to be there exactly as they are, you have to love your mind in the same way. It's giving you a thought. You receive it, you give it your unconditional presence, you love it, and then you seek to understand it, and that's your interpretation of its meaning. Because once you understand something, that's the deepest form of love that there is. All of us want to be seen and then understood. And most human beings I've ever met, and they have a deep desire to be seen, and beneath that is an even deeper desire to be understood, and that's the most loving state that there is. Same goes with the parts of yourself that are you're a mind, you're a body, and you're a spirit. You are the mind. Everything is birthed in the mind. The spirit came second, which is a field of potential to materialize into any form, which you are also made of. And then you are the materialized form. So mind came first, then spirit, then body. Body being really a union of both. But this is essential. You have to be able to love every aspect of yourself. And you have to know that you are a mind. You have to understand the nature of the mind. That its love language is thought. You have to understand that you're a spirit. Its love language is emotion. And you have to understand that you're a body. And its love language is meaning, because when you have a body, you can interpret the signals and the feelings that you're feeling. And that creates meaning. And meaning is what materializes matter. And I'll just give you, I've talked about this in lots of podcast episodes, but just to give you a quick understanding, meaning is all that matters. Let's say, you're making a spaghetti bolognese. If I buy some mince and some onions, and then I put them in the frying pan, and then I add some sauce, and then I add some garlic, it means that I will have a meal of spaghetti bolognese at the end. It's the meaning of all of those little choices combined together that creates the alchemy of the spaghetti bolognese. Now, if you decided to pour milk, fill the frying pan up with milk, then it means that you won't have a nice meal of spaghetti bolognese. So it's the meaning of each individual action, decision, choice. Understanding that by adding garlic, it means that I will be able to taste this. By using high quality mince, it means it's going to bring it, taste like that. There's a meaning behind every action and choice that you make. And meaning truly is all that materializes matter. And so, when people are experimenting, like scientists, when they're doing experimentation, they're continually failing with their experiments, trying to prove the hypothesis. In reality, what they're doing is searching for meaning. And once they run an experiment that proves the hypothesis, it's because they've adapted the hypothesis to the emerging truth. And they've discovered the meaning. And so if they were to run that experiment again, it's not about discovery. It's about, I know that if I do this, it means that. So all exploration, all discovery is about a search for meaning. So this is the nature of your body as a self-regulating perpetual system. And the thought is the gift that's given, that is obligation free, and that's really unconditional love. That's the nature of the mind. It gives of itself freely without condition, and the reason why that's unconditional, it's obligation free, is because you can choose to ignore your thoughts. You can choose to ignore your thoughts. Now, you think you can choose to ignore your feelings. But the reality is that you can resist them, but you can't really ignore them. So anyway, that's going a bit too deep for now, because I want to really touch on a self-regulating perpetual organization and how that works. So hopefully you've got the gist. The universe is made this way as well. It's a self-regulating perpetual system. If you look into the nature of a toral field, you'll discover that it's imperfect. That when you have the poles, so this is a polarized existence we live in. It's linear, left and right, up and down. It's radiant and magnetic. And, this universe, what is radiated, when it expresses that radiation, when it magnetizes that back in, when it comes back to the 0 point, the energy that's collected just before it reaches the 0 point, the gravity within that space holds the key to a perpetual perpetuating that energy in another toral field. So it's deliberately imperfect, and it's been created very, very intelligently to be a perpetual source of energy, both radiant and magnetic, and perpetual. So I'll start going deeper into these topics in other podcast episodes. I've touched on them before, but for now we'll stick with the organization. So what does this mean for a self-regulating perpetual organization? Whenever I talk to people, they always talk to me about DAOs, a digital autonomous organization running on blockchain. And of course, they're brilliant, they're amazing, and they work super well. And they're an incredible way to run an autonomous organization. But you don't actually have to have blockchain, and you don't have to have a distributed platform in order to have an autonomous organization. You can do it very easily by structuring it, by structuring your organization in a way that just behaves in an autonomous fashion. So I don't want blockchain to be a barrier to people creating autonomous organizations right now. And this is really why I'm sharing this information on the podcast, because my business Morpheus is about to go live very soon, which is a collaborative incubator where people can come and share their ideas for collaborative projects and invite collaborators to come and join them to initiate projects, and then collaborate and then share in the success together once they've realized the vision, realized the potential of that project. And so whilst it's not mandatory to set your organization up like a SRPO, it is an option, and I'm very keen to get people involved in this wherever possible. So let's say you do treat the organization like it's similar to a body, where it has 3 component parts that are each self-regulating, totally sovereign, but not in servitude to each other in any way, shape, or form. So if you are, let's say you're a founder of an idea, you're the source, you're its creator, then the ideal scenario is that you provide the initial impetus, source of inspiration for that or for that project. And so in the same way as the mind, you share a vision. And then you invite people to interpret that vision and to receive their own inspiration, and that provides them the kinetic energy to want to act and contribute towards that vision. And so this is all about activating the latent potential within people to be inspired towards creating something now, rather than, oh, I need money. I need money, so I won't share the vision just yet. I'm going to wait till I, try and find some money, or just do everything on my own for as long as I can. So this is about igniting projects using inspiration alone as the impetus to drive it forward, replacing all the things that you would have to spend money on with the expertise, skills, and resources of people who are inspired by the project. And so if you're the founder, the ideal scenario is that you receive 10%. So it's similar to a franchise, actually, where the recommended contribution or the recommended way to set yourself up is where you receive 10%, and you are the founder, you are the source of that creation. Now, if you wanted to get co-founders, my recommendation is to have 3. Surprise, surprise. And for the makeup of those people to be similar to mind, body, spirit, in that one person very, very mind-focused and, logical. Another person is the visionary, so that would be me in the scenario. That's my nature, is I'm visionary. And then, I call it a voice, but really it's an interface between the visionary and the mind, who's like an interpreter, and that person really has the ability to translate the vision into language or words that can then be understood by the body. And this is very similar how it happens in the body. And that's how you convey the meaning of the vision. So, like for me, you'll notice on this podcast, I talk about concepts that are, most people would never understand. If I was to share this in one of the organizations I'm involved with, unless there's someone who understands it at the level I'm expressing it at, to translate it into normal language that for other people so that they can all understand and then have the potential to be inspired by that vision, it's not going to work. And so I recommend a trinity of people, and but what I would also recommend is that the 10% then gets split into 3. So that 3.33 recurring percent for each of those 3. Now, the ideal scenario, if you are the visionary, the original creator, founder, and you've got 2 co-founders, is you don't want the organization to be controlled by your vision. You only want it to respond to inspiration. And what this means is that the nature of how you share yourself with that organization is you share your vision, and that's it. This is what I'm seeing. And then, so it's obligation free. The organization is free. If it's not inspired by it, then it doesn't get implemented. If it's misinterpreted, it gets misinterpreted. But you're like an observer. You're continually observing, and as inspiration arises, you're sharing your perspective. And what this means is that you're obligation free. You're free of obligation, and you're free because your nature is that you're a visionary, and more than likely you'd rather spend time, imagining new things rather than actually doing stuff in the business. And for someone like me who's just constantly inspired with ideas and has folders on their computer overflowing with ideas for, in my case, collaborative businesses and collaborative projects, this is my ideal scenario. Is I want to be entirely untethered from everything I'm involved with, and just to receive 3.3% of whatever revenue they're generating, and to have zero obligation to that business in terms of having to do anything within it. And what I love about this is that the only way you can influence that organization is through inspiration. Is you have to share your vision. It's the only way you can influence it. You can never control it out of fear. You can never oppress anyone. And what you're actually doing is and this is essential in a SRPO, is you're enabling that organization to have free will. It's not serving your will. It's free to determine what your vision means to it and then act accordingly. And so this is how the first layer of self-regulation. The vision is shared, obligation-free, and the organization itself is free to reject it, resist it, misinterpret it, or be inspired towards implementing it and make it even better. And what I love about this is that the visionary is always surprised and delighted about what actually unfolds, rather than their will just being served up to them. This is exactly what you asked for, but this is the beauty of inspiration, is when you ignite people, their own inspiration contributes towards it and makes it even greater than the original vision. So that's the mechanism. That's the mechanism I definitely recommend. And then in terms of the body, that's, it's like the DNA. What is the DNA that this body needs? It needs a web developer, it needs a graphic designer, it needs an accountant, and everyone has a different body. Everyone's body has evolved to adapt to the specific needs of their own environment, and the nature of the body will always be different. But in a SRPO, what you're doing is it's entrustment based, and this is a term that you may not have heard of, but it's common law based contracting, where you have a central constitution, a centralized constitution. Before the organization kicks into gear, everyone agrees to that constitution. Everyone has the opportunity to add to it, to suggest changes, and the system is not ignited until everyone agrees on that constitution together. And then what each individual does is you have a graphic designer. That graphic designer enters into a common law contract that bonds them to the Constitution. So it's like an extension to the centralized Constitution. And for those of you that understand smart contracts and blockchain technology, you'll see that we're just mimicking exactly how a smart contract works, but we're doing it in a manual way. So, and all of those agreements are transparent. They're all stored in a central folder. every person who's involved on the project collaborating, they know what each person has been pledged out of the share of the success. They agree that that's, how valuable this person is. And it's totally consensus-based. Everyone's working together. And they can see what each collaborator has been entrusted with. So this web developer has been entrusted with maintaining the website, creating new images, creating new landing pages. Whatever that person has been entrusted with is what they're doing, what they've agreed they can contribute, and their word is their bond. And so you form your organization based on, so you come together and you say, okay, here are the DNA for the body of this organization is these 12 people with these 12 skills. You share the vision and you seek to invite people who are inspired by the vision to collaborate that do have those skills. If there are expenses that need to be covered by that organization, then you invite people who are willing to either pay those bills on behalf of the organization as a collaborator, or make a donation or contribute money. And in the same way that, a web developer's contribution may be worth, let's say it's a 12-month project. Well, I actually recommend 13 months for a standard business. So let's say it's a 13-month project, and over that 13 months, that web developer's value is $50,000. In the same way, if a collaborator is paying bills worth $50,000 over those 12 months, that's the value of their contribution. And for some people, they like to just pay the bills for the organization. Some people will want to make a donation because they just want to contribute in their own way. And some people will want to make, plonk money in. And so everyone's contribution is different. For some people, it's their presence, meaning their energy. For some people, it's their money, which is, both of those things are mechanisms for appreciation. And so once you've got your team on board, one of the members of that team is going to be a legal person to draw up the agreements, and the value of their contribution is like any other collaborator. And then you get started, and you've got a 12-month plan, you've got a budget, you can see what the costs are every month, you can see that there's a collaborator paying those costs, you can see that there's a sales target, and every month, all that happens is every collaborator has a dashboard, and I've built a collaborative e-commerce platform specifically for collaborative projects that's coming online very soon. And so everyone collaborating on that project has a dashboard, and they can see, okay, the performance of this project was, we haven't generated any revenue yet. And then when you do start generating revenue, you'll see it in your dashboard. And on the first of the month, you submit an invoice to the person who's in charge of the money, and they pay you your percentage. Next month, there's more revenue, you submit another invoice, and it's all contribution based. It's all transparent. And the void of where most people, stop taking a project forward because they don't have any money, it's all being filled by the inspiration, the enthusiasm, and the passion of people who do have the skills and are willing to share in the success of that project together. And so then after 13 months of the project, that everything will have been ramping up from that point where revenue started coming in, all the bills are still getting paid, everyone's received their contribution and been covered, and hopefully even more successful than was planned. So if you estimated that your value was $50,000 over that 13 months, maybe you received $100,000 because it was so successful. And then what we have is a scenario where the founders of that project, or the founder, can then say, okay, this is a standalone business now. It's totally self-reliant. Do I want to continue it on a share of success basis, or do I want to now start retaining these people? So, okay, out of all of the collaborators that started working with me from the beginning, half of them were part-time, wanting to go full-time using their passion. So now I can pay those people full-time to come on board. Now it's, they used to have a side hustle doing web development. Now they've got a full-time job as doing web development for a standalone business project, and you can pay them every month. So you go through your team of collaborators and you do exactly the same thing with every single person. Some of them might say, okay, I want to go and join another project now. I want to keep this as a side hustle and just do it part-time. Or they might say, I want to be a professional. I want to dedicate myself to just initiating projects. Once it stands alone, it's not as challenging for me, not as exciting. So you'll get people that want to specialize in just igniting a project and getting it to become self-reliant. And, this is the whole point, is that what you're actually doing is you're using the inspiration of people and their passion to ignite the engine and provide the kinetic energy for that project until it's capable of being its own source of energy, where it's creating all the money that it needs on its own and can then pay for everything on its own. And that's what makes it perpetual. And so the self-regulating nature, it also means that, let's say someone is hit by a bus, one of the team members hit by a bus, as unfortunate as that is, it's because it's collaborative. You can say, okay, we now need to go and seek another collaborator, and that person's contribution is then available to the next person. It's perpetual in that way. And now let's say if you're the founder, like in my case, you're the visionary, all you're doing is sharing your perspective. That's obligation free. Then you can, over time, you can build in your vision and your intent, and continually update the constitution, the centralized constitution, until it's totally infused with your purpose and intent. It's got as much of your vision as you can possibly have in there. And if the visionary gets hit by a bus, then the constitution will determine the nature of how that organization continues to evolve and thrive. And so this is a great solution for existing business owners that want to leave a legacy. By transitioning to a SRPO, it means that your business will go on forever, even when you're gone. And the 3.3% that you have, if you have 3 founders, that can continue going to your family or whoever you've left behind after you've been hit by the bus. And that's forever, that 3.3%. That's a forever link, because you were the source of that. You were the creator of that, and that's how a perpetual system works. Is that the original source of the kinetic energy, the inspiration, there's always energy going back to that source from the system itself. And this is the same with the universe. And it's actually 10%. And so all of the founders that you have involved, you could have 12 founders, but it would still be 10% divided amongst those 12 people. And that's an eternal link. That's an eternal receiving of that 10%. So yeah, now you can, if you're a founder and you just want to get out, then you can obviously transfer your rights to that percentage to another person. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think the other thing I would add is that, for any founder that doesn't want to be hands-on, then it's that they can build into the organization, some form of virtual director or whatever it may be, some form of board who are receiving a share. So, there's lots of different ways you can adapt it and change it. And, being constitution based and common law based, it means that once blockchain and smart contract technology is more prevalent, and we're also working on that within the Powerhouse project I'm involved with, it'll be a smooth transition onto that kind of structure down the track. But for now, we want people to be able to create a perpetual organization without needing to rely and depend upon blockchain, because it's available now. So hopefully that makes sense. I've got other videos that go more deeply into perpetual energy and all that kind of stuff. And, I am involved with people and projects who are utilizing these concepts to develop sources of perpetual energy. And it's exciting. It's super exciting. So I'll leave it there. That's it for the nature of a SRPO, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers for now.